it's rough, man, and staying at home could alleviate a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, to think like that I used to commute an hour to and back from work every day. That's 2 hours out of my day just sitting in a car.
I mean, that's insane.
Yeah, and I remember
that's crazy.
I remember telling my boss at the time, and this is my way of bullshitting, right? Because I'm a marketer, so I'm pretty good at bullshitting and trying to like, you know, get my way without letting my boss know that I'm getting my way. But I remember I had to start going into the office at one point because literally what you're talking about, where like bosses are trying to justify like paying rent for a building, and that's the only reason that they're willing to risk all these people's like health and well-being and everything, because it's like, well, I bought that computer and I want you to sit at that desk. Like, I'm paying for that desk, you know? My boss, the CEO of my company went to the office in Austin, which is the Austin employees. There's not many, you know, compared to like the other cities that we have offices in. So like he went to the Austin office and got really pissed off because it was Friday afternoon, so like not many people are going to go to the office on Friday if they don't have to, and B, it was afternoon. It was like 4:00 in the afternoon on a Friday, which, you know, like most of us work in marketing. You're pretty much done by 4:00 every day, you know. It's just how the marketing world works. So like not much can get done between 4 and 6. So it's any emails that come in after 4, you're like, well, I'm not going to answer that shit until tomorrow anyway, so I'm just going to go home. So he came to the office on Friday at 4:00 and was livid at how few people were there. And he said, like, why the hell am I paying for this building if no one's here? Like, what? Good question, right? Like, what? And
I got a suggestion for you.
Right.
Stop paying for the building.
Right. So his solution was to force people to start going to the office. He was like, we're going to start checking. Because we have like badges, like little fob keys to get into the office for security. Yeah. And they were going to start checking
they're like tracking
our logs of how often we came into the building. And if you weren't going in, I think it was like 4 days out of the week or something like that. I mean, you were basically to be put on like we're going to watch you, you know, like you're on probation now. Like you have to start going to the office. So I had to start going to the office. This was like sometime early 2020. So
I mean, I remember that happening.
Yeah.
I remember you telling me about that.
Yeah, that was like a huge thing for me because at that point I had been 3 years working remotely. So to like having to start going to the office after 3 years was just like, all right, well, I'm going to fucking quit then. I'm like, you guys gave me a taste of the fucking good life and I don't want to go back. So I remember telling my boss, like trying to petition him that I don't have to come in. And I said, you know, the 2 hours that I drive to and back from work can be hours that I'm being productive and actually working on something. I wouldn't be. Mm-hmm. I don't want to fucking work more. But that was my way of selling it. That I'm just like, hey, while I'm in the car, I'm not at my computer. So I'm like, I can't do work if I'm commuting. So why don't we just give me those 2 extra hours a day just for this bullshit having to save face with the CEO and show that I'm actually working or whatever. I'm like, why don't he just look at my computer logs and see that my computer's on and I'm logged in all day, you know? So,
and also the amount of gas you save and like car wear.
Right.
You know?
I didn't even think about that, you know? For me, it was
driving
time.
An hour each day.
Yeah, for me, it was just time, like saving time. And his solution to that was take meetings during those commute hours so I can just be in a meeting while I'm driving. And talk, and he was like, "Well, so that way you're productive." And I was just like, "Dude, what?"
Well, are you paying for me? Are you gonna pay while I'm in the car?
I mean, technically, I guess they are because I'm salary, you know.
Oh God.
But that's because his solution was just like, "Oh, well, then just take work while you're in the car." He was like, "Then you can be productive." And I'm just like, "So not only
fucking listen to yourself, listen to what you're saying, and tell me we are not in a dystopian society."
That's what I gave him this like. I wear my heart on my sleeves. My emotions are very clear on my face usually, and I gave him a look, and he was just like, "Are you not comfortable with that?" And I like couldn't hold it back. I was just like, "Dude, so not only do I have to like drive 2 hours a day, but you're also asking me to work while I'm driving those 2 hours, like not even be able to listen to music or a podcast or anything that brings me joy." It's like your solution is just keep work, just do more work then. That's the solution. And he was like, well, yeah, that's what I do. And I'm just like, yeah, well, I don't want your life.
I am not you.
Yeah, I'm not you. So,
Dad.
Yeah, man. So I'm kind of like, I'm just dealing with all that. But I'm also getting really excited, like, when I get out of that funk of work, like, basically when I close my computer, I'm immediately, like, thinking about everything else that I'm going to hopefully be doing in the next few years. And then I just get really pumped and motivated and inspired and everything. And part of that is, like, this podcast has been part of that journey for me of, like, figuring out what I want to do.
Yeah, well, we've been... I won't say too much at the moment because it's still in a very early stage.
No spoilies.
We've been talking more about kind of putting more into this podcast and kind of expanding our horizons, and it's gotten me really excited to finally, put more of myself into a creative project, which is something I haven't done, well, for the last year and a half at least because of the pandemic, but also even even before that, we kind of had to restrain ourselves at Mortales. Like, everyone had higher priorities. We were talking about, like, every other weekend, like, going out and, like, touring or something.
Never did it.
Never got to that. We
talking about music videos. Never did that.
But everyone just had their lives to live, and we weren't getting enough attention or money to justify putting the work into that stuff. And we just didn't have the time,
Yeah, for sure.
But now, it's this podcast, and it's just exciting seeing where we might go with it.
I'm really excited, man. I'm really looking forward to figuring out how we can add on to this and make this, like, a bigger thing that we do. And it really has been, like, I feel like I've noticed that about you, that you need, I think you're like me, where you need a creative project to work, like, having something creative to work on just is really fulfilling.
Yeah. I mean, I've always loved conceptualizing stuff. That's like the easiest and funnest part of most projects, right?
For sure.
Like, conceptualizing, thinking what it might happen, then when you get in the nitty gritty, it becomes, you do the actual
You're like,
work.
oh fuck.
Like, so saying
I gotta
do
3 hours of something today.
saying I enjoy the easiest part of it isn't saying much, but it is something that keeps me awake.
But that's how your brain works too, right? Like, because, like, I feel like, I don't know if you're the same way I am, but when I think of a little seedling of an idea, within 30 minutes, that has become the biggest, like, the most that I can see that this thing would become is, like, what I see it, like, what I picture in my head of, like, well, that's what I want to do. Like, when I was thinking about that podcast a couple of years ago about That Shit Changed My Life.
Yeah.
And when I thought of the idea of if we're talking about an album, then we can do a cover song at the end. Oh, that'd be really fun. Like, to have people, like, because then, these are musicians that also get to, like, play play their favorite song on their favorite record. Like, that's, every musician's going to want to do that, right? And then immediately I thought, this could be something I do at music festivals. This could be a live show where, like, I interview Foo Fighters and they cover a Jackson 5 song at the end of the interview. I'm just like, this could be a live show. This could lend really well. And so I immediately went from just starting a podcast in my living room to I am doing live shows at ACL. And so I need to find a way to separate those two and just, like, focus on the idea. Because it's the same thing with my Twitch channel.
Slow down, man.
Yeah, like, let things build organically.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what's happening with this podcast. Is, like, obviously I had this grand idea of what this could become, and I've just let it just be what it is. And it's been really fun because of that. There's, like, no pressure. And I think it's, like, this is organically, naturally progressing to what we're going to add on to this, And I think it's something that's, like, we both realize, like, we have time for this. We can dedicate more time to this, and it's fun. And and seeing results of your work is really rewarding and fulfilling and everything. So it's like, we had to meet at that crossroad. We both had to be ready to start doing more. Yeah. So it's like letting that organically happen, I think, has been really helpful to, like, hold back myself a little bit.
Yeah. And I personally am very hesitant and cautious whenever I do something like this, just because ever since middle school I was trying to start projects like this. And
You've been hurt too many times, Brett.
I've been hurt too many times.
You've been disappointed and left on the side of the road.
But yeah, just, you know, and sometimes it's not even anyone's fault, right? Sometimes it's just life gets in the way, and for some reason, like, what if we recorded 4 episodes and we both realized that, like, oh, we have no idea how to do something like this, and, like, we get disinterested. And so the fact that we've been doing this for
8 months, man.
8 months now? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel like it, right?
For 8 months, and that we're still trucking along, and we're still, even with the little difficulties we've had, we put in this effort to, like, you know, when we could have easily just let a week pass, we did all we could to, like, schedule something and record and get the episode out as quick as possible.
You know how easy it would have been to let this die just me moving? Just
honestly,
that alone.
Yeah. And I guess me moving as well, a much lower stakes thing, but
still, you know, and like still. And I was like, yeah, it was clear that we are still interested because we were just constantly reaching out, even when we couldn't record that week. We were just like, all right, well, when can we record next week? Okay, we said Tuesday, but now we can't do Tuesday. How about Thursday? You know, it's like there was never a canceling. It was always a rescheduling, and I think that's like a really important thing to keep that motivation going and that keep that progression and everything. And yeah, man, it was like I was really psyched when you were texting me talking about, you know, what else can we do here? Like, what else can we do with this? And because I've been thinking since the start, what else can we do? But just kind of let myself take a little bit of a backseat and just enjoy the process, you know? And
just kind of let it unfold naturally.
Just kind of let it unfold, yeah. And so I'm really excited to figure out that next evolution of what we do with just the two of us, you know, like even if it's part of the podcast or not, if it's related or whatever, it's just like that next evolution is like really exciting, even though it is going to be the podcast and and what we do with it. Yeah. But yeah, man. And it's like so fun to like listen to these albums and talk through them with you and just give you my like unfiltered opinion. Even when I don't like the record that much, which leads us to what we're talking about today.
What's up, guys?
What's up, buddies? And welcome to another episode of Earbuds, the podcast where two buds talk about one album for time.
For two time.
For two time. And
2 or 3, just depends.
You know, we're the odd couple of podcasts. We're the pod couple of oddcasts. We're the
throb couple of throbcasts.
Yeah. Oh, if
there's so many titles.
Now you're giving too much away. That's the next step we're going to be a throbcast.
That's our next project.
Yeah. We are your hosts, Lucas, me, the jammer,
the bowling ball,
Indrakovs, and my buddy, one of my best friends and my co-host, Brett, the hammer hands, Indrakovs. And
that's right. We have officially.
I have adopted Brett. You are now my son, and I will speak to you as such during this recording.
I told you the first time I met you, and you gave me a nasty look. But I the first time I met you, I told you I think of you as my father.
Yes. As
my second and third father.
Well, I see myself as your first.
Yeah, and you know it definitely the all the official paperwork has definitely helped me see that side of that.
Yeah. And I just like to think of like it's kind of like when you use a public restroom, like you pretend that you were the first one to use it that day, you know? So it's totally clean. Right. And like I see you as a public restroom in that sense.
That might be the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me.
The nicest thing a dad has ever said to you.
That's
And the album that we're talking about today is by a band called Sheer Mag.
Sheer Mag. And when you hear the name Sheer Mag, what decade do you get sent to, Lucas?
I get throttled into the 2030s. I get throttled into the future. No, really, I mean, the name, the album art, and the music, it all takes you back to the 70s.
It's extremely 70s.
It all takes you back to the 70s. The album is called A Distant Call. These guys have been described as combining the Mekons, which I've never heard of, but I want to check them out. But the Mekons mixed with Thin Lizzy, which I would say they're really heavily influenced by Thin Lizzy.
For sure, yeah.
Apparently Jackson 5, which I didn't hear at all, but that's in their description.
Jackson 5?
Yeah. I was surprised by that too. Maybe their older stuff, because this is the only record I've heard by them. And MC5, which I hear also. Kind of like garage rock.
Oh
little
yeah,
punky
for sure.
stuff.
I could see a little bit of that. This is their second album.
Mm-hmm.
I have not listened to the first one. Would you say it's... Have you heard it?
You know,
You just said you did.
I didn't. I've heard a couple of other tracks by them, and to be honest, it all sounds very similar to me. I think the main difference on this record versus their previous ones is that they went a little more personal and a little more political on this record. So I think sonically it's really similar, but I think thematically they kind of matured a little bit or got a little more serious with their songwriting. I would even say there's like a little bit of glam rock, a little glam metal.
Oh, for sure.
Like there are definitely moments where like I wish I was wearing a pair of leather pants with the crotch cut out.
I mean, when I listened to the album before I looked up the band, and I just imagined everyone in skinny leather jeans,
right?
big old fluffed up hair,
right?
Just kind of messy all around. And then I looked at a live video and I'm like, oh, they look nothing like that whatsoever.
Yeah, they just kind of look like regular alternative rock.
They just kind of look like regular dudes with instruments and dudettes.
Yeah, I would say the singer, she has a kind of that style, that kind of glam rock, almost scene girl, bordering scene girl type style.
Yeah,
but yeah, all the other dudes are pretty nondescript. And it's weird, man. Like I first heard this record about a year and a half. I actually listened to this record when I visited San Diego last year to see if I wanted to move here, and maybe it was the excitement and the mood I was in and being in a new city and all this stuff, and that's when I was doing my daily album reviews. So this was one of them, and
I remember that.
You know, the first time I listened to this, I really, really loved it. It was a genre of music that I never had checked out before. Like that 70s rock stuff always sounded so just cheeseball to me, and classic rock in general. And so obviously I knew all of it. Some of it I liked, but it was just nothing I ever gravitated towards. And I saw this name Sheer Mag come up on my Spotify, and had no idea who it was, what they sounded like. And then from the first track, I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of like bringing like steel sharpens steel. I was like, okay, this is kind of bringing back that like 70s metal. I'm like, okay, this is, I was just starting to kind of get back into that stuff. Michael had recommended a Judas Priest record to me, which Steel Sharpens Steel, it sounds like a ripoff of a Judas Priest song. Even with that steel, sharpen steel. Yeah, like very chanty, purposefully doing like low voice stuff. So I loved it. It like totally was like hitting all the right spots for me when I first listened to it, and then like listening to it a year and a half later, it like fell pretty fucking flat with me this time around. Yeah, and there have been tracks on here that I've continued listening to. Obviously, like I haven't gone back to the whole record until we decided to do it for the show, but
yeah, there
was definitely like several tracks on here that I had gone back and listened to and still loved the same as the first time I heard it. But then listening to the whole record, it did fall kind of flat for me this time around.
Well, I sometimes throughout the week we'll kind of talk to each other, and we'll kind of hint about...
We stay in contact.
I'd prefer not to.
Yeah.
I'd rather us stay acquaintances.
I'd rather email than text, but text is fine.
But no, we'll just be talking or whatever, and sometimes we'll kind of give little hints, little previews into how we think about the album.
I love that we're both very guarded, and like we won't give each other too much because we're like save it for the pod, but we'll still be like, if I feel like compelled to have to say something, I'll send you a little bit of a thing, and you do too, and I love how like. How vague we are sometimes, and sometimes not so vague when we were texting about
and
this
sometimes
record.
we're a little more upfront.
Yeah.
Lucas texted me. He's like, "Do not listen to this album on some crappy car speakers."
Jesus.
And that was the way I'd listen to the album throughout the couple weeks.
Shit.
But I listened to it twice through some earbuds, and it's definitely a much better listen.
What, like way better, right? Like
and that's the one of the main reasons why I gave up any type of career in sound technology is because that stuff happens all the time.
Really?
Right? It's to do with mastering mainly.
So,
but
is it
the way you
is it like the brick wall or whatever, like bricking? Is that like what is happening on this record?
Bricking.
Well, whereas they compress it so much that it's just like the sound waves are all at the same level the whole time, and there's not a lot of dynamics. Like what part of the mastering like making sure that this sounds good through a bunch of different types of speakers and outlets? Like what part of what is it?
Well, the thing is, it's all, there are so many variables, and it could have this record stays within the same frequencies the entire time.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it could even just be how fast you're driving down the road.
That's for sure.
The engine revving goes to the same frequencies that you're listening to, and it kind of dampens out something. If you're going 20 miles an hour, the album's going to sound different than when you're going 80.
Very true. Yeah.
know? And so just that, so many variables like that, and what car speakers you have, and listening through headphones and listening through a phone speaker, they're all different. They're all different mixes, really.
And I feel like those post EQ stuff, like where you can change the EQ in your car or change the EQ like on your streaming service or anything, like I feel like that is meant to mitigate those issues. Yeah,
for sure. That's why, and also the acoustics of the interior of the car change how the music sounds. And
you mentioned speed. Like
why,
there is a certain speed that I'm driving that sometimes music nothing sounds good anymore. Like going faster than like 50 or 60, and depending on how much wind noise is in your car and shit. But in general, like I'll turn off music if I'm driving that fast because none of it will sound good.
Yeah. And when I was driving around with this album, it was one of the albums that I just couldn't listen to because in order to turn it up enough for me to hear everything, it started getting more and more harsh. It's grating, and especially with the way that the vocalist sounds in this particular situation, it actually hurts.
Yeah, no shit, man. Like the way that they manage her vocals on this record remind me of, not in terms of like sonically, but remind me of like what they do in 311 with Nick Hexum's vocals, where he always has that chorusy thing added to his voice.
God.
And this record, throughout the entire record, they do not change what her voice sounds like. And I don't know, I wish there was a lot of information about this record because I wanted to know what equipment they used for this record, because it does sound like they're using vintage equipment, even with like her microphone, but then it could just be made to sound that way. So
I mean, I
couldn't find any information on it.
They definitely seem like the type of band that would love to go into an old 70s studio and record on analog.
Exactly.
And, have the mixers and stuff, but it honestly sounded manufactured.
It did sound manufactured. It sounded like her voice, they placed like a bit of a ping pong delay or something, like a really quick one, plus some sort of phaser or maybe just like really wet reverb or something. And she sings at a really high register, and that's part of what I liked a lot about this record was her vocals at first. Like her voice is so perfect for this type of music. Like she has the bratty, snotty, but kind of playful and fun garage rocky vocals where she kind of snarls at times and she gets kind of rough and she goes, like at the peak of her register, but it's all very like high pitched. Yeah. And combine a voice that is already very high pitched and doesn't need any help to be more trebly and bright, then add a whole bunch of bright shit to it in production, and then you have something that's almost like we were saying, like on certain speakers, almost unlistenable.
Yeah, and the main, if you don't like the vocals of this album, you're not gonna like the album.
From the start.
That's it's all completely centered around the vocals. All the bandmates know it. Everyone in the band knows it.
And she has a killer voice.
She has a good voice, but I feel like the entire record, not even talking about the effects, which I honestly despise on her voice, like a reverb, a big reverb and like a delay, or maybe a little phaser.
Maybe a phaser,
It definitely mimicked the sound of the 70s, but I hate it.
Yeah, it's like mimicking like a live recording is what it's.
And then also combined with, she does have a good voice.
Great for rock and roll, like great for garage rock. She's clearly like channeling those 70s, vocalists.
Yeah. But it honestly, after half an hour, after 34 minutes of it, I got sick of the slightly kind of gritty vocals that she does throughout the entire thing, and it makes everything less.
Nothing stands out.
Genuine to me.
Less what?
Genuine.
Oh, like, really?
Yeah, because the lyrics, all but 2 songs seem to me a little half-hearted.
Yeah.
And
a little vague.
Just kind of. Yeah, just vague and kind of like naming off names that sound cool. Talking about, I'm in the cauldron and I'm gonna fight the enemy.
Yeah, like Unfound Manifest, which is like using a bunch of seafaring terms.
Like it's like if you got a medieval Mad Lib, then you could get the lyrics for any song in this record.
Absolutely.
Except for a couple songs, which it was very odd how personal.
Yes.
Those songs got.
I already know Cold Sword, one of them.
Cold Sword is the main one, and also The Right Stuff a little bit.
Right.
But Cold Sword got so personal when none of the other songs feel personal at all.
Right.
It was just, it stood out to me so much.
Same here. And that was my choice nug when I first listened to this record. Cold Sword gets really personal about like an abusive father.
Yeah. And so when you use the same style of vocals on that song as every other song, it's like, well, it feels like there's no real passion in any of these songs anymore. Yeah. It's like when RX Bandits, when the singer does that little gruff like, he does it sparingly.
You feel it.
And you feel it, and you feel that he's like he's getting ready to mean something.
Yeah, he's very dynamic with his singing, and that's what I need to look up her name because I feel bad just saying the singer. 1 second, let me look up her name. But yeah, I do. That's really Tina Halliday is the singer's name. That's a really interesting. I don't know. I don't think it's a concept, but that's a really interesting point that you make. That it's like her voice doesn't sound disingenuous until you get to those personal songs, and then you hear like, oh, you're singing with the same passion and the same intensity as the song about being on a boat. And so and it does take away from not just the more personal songs, but it almost takes away from the record as a whole when you realize like, oh, you're not really feeling anything. This is just how you sing.
Yeah, it's just her vocal style. She, and there are a couple moments when she doesn't have the gruff, maybe in the slower
Silver
songs.
Line is one
And
where she kind of like backs off a little bit.
yeah, and those were the moments, most of all, where I saw how good of a singer she really is and could be, I guess.
I love the silver line.
Yeah.
Like kind of holding it back, not being as like snotty. Yeah, those moments stand out.
And yeah, it just through this whole record, it got old.
Yeah,
pretty quickly for me.
You know, we went into the vocals, you know, and looking at the instrumentation also, like,
well, yeah, let's focus on the instruments a little.
Yeah, the guitars, the tone, I like most of the distorted guitar tones that they use on this.
I think I honestly think the guitars are the best part of this record.
I agree.
The tones they have are like very, just very juicy, I guess.
They sound vintage also. Like it sounds like that old school 70s rock distortion.
Yeah, for sure. And it's very blues influenced.
Extremely.
Right. Extremely blues influenced through the whole album.
But I'll also say, while I enjoy the tone, I don't enjoy the riffs.
Yeah, there was never a riff that stuck out to me on this entire thing, aside from maybe Blood from a Stone or Blood from a Rock, when they kind of have that little break in the vocals and it goes like...
Yes, I wrote down, I like the chorus like guitar weak during the pre-chorus. Whatever like chorus effect that they put on that. Yeah, Blood from Stone, Cold Sword, and The Killer, I thought were like the three best riffing songs. And that's not saying a lot, to be honest, because the other songs, the riffs are so boring and like borrowed. You know, there hasn't been. I've heard a million songs that use all these riffs.
Yeah, it's like if you told me to imitate a sheer mag riff, I wouldn't imitate a sheer mag riff. I'd just imitate a default 70s guitar riff.
Right. Then it would all fit.
There's really nothing too unique. Like I can tell the guitarist has a lot of skill, and they could do more, but maybe they don't have more to give. It's like they wear their influences on their sleeve, and they kind of wear their influences as a shirt, right?
Right.
Like,
as a shield of armor.
Like that band Greta Van Fleet.
Don't get me started, brother.
I mean, they just made their fame being a Led Zeppelin clone.
Yeah, and then apparently they deny that Led Zeppelin is an influence.
Oh,
and they say, actually,
silly.
Aerosmith is like our number one influence. We're just like, fuck
off.
off.
Is that right?
Yeah. Is that what you wear?
Well, you see a live show, and the singer's doing all this Robert Plant,
dude,
spiritual-looking wavy stuff.
And the clothes that he wears. I mean, I don't want to get into this.
And he just... yeah, okay.
You're going to upset
That's beside the point. But they are not subtle about their influences. But
it's
that's the thing about those bands, is that they're... When you imitate another sound so much, you're not going to be better than the bands you imitate.
Right.
You have to put some of yourself in there and change it up.
And how many, 40, 50 years of music have happened since the 70s? 50 years of rock and roll that you can incorporate into this sound, and you're not incorporating anything new into this. So you listen to it and you're like, that's why it's like, I've heard 100 bands that sound exactly like this, and it doesn't do you any favors.
Yeah. And I couldn't tell you what the bass was doing.
Man,
it wasn't doing anything special.
We're talking about the EQ and the mastering and shit. Like, the bass in my car didn't exist.
I literally didn't hear it the whole
time. Until I put on headphones, I didn't hear the bass at all. And then also in the car, the guitars were so high end and trebly, and maybe all mids and all treble or something, that they had no. It's okay. They had no. Hey, we live together. They had no dynamics in the guitar tone either. So in the car, the guitar, everything sucks in the car. With headphones on, the guitars, the tone really shines through on headphones, and you can actually hear the bass.
Yeah, but even when you can hear the bass isn't doing anything.
No,
they aren't doing anything aside from holding the song down.
Right.
And the drummer, the first couple times I listened to this record, I was wondering if they had a drummer, and if it wasn't just like a drum machine or something, because every single song sounds the same, and every single song has the same drum pattern, and there's like little to no dynamic. There's hardly any fills to let you know that there's a human behind.
Dude, their fills are literally
set.
Like that's it's really boring.
It's not something I
feel bad for the drummer if there is one.
It's not something I usually get on, because I always say that a drum part that fits the song is better than an impressive drum part. But God, man, maybe it's just there was just nothing to latch on to
at all.
You know, and every song sounded the same all throughout the song. If you listened to the first 30 seconds of the song, you've listened to the rest of it.
Mm-hmm. It's very true.
And it's just, I don't know, man.
Yeah,
it wasn't a hard listen, but it was a rough one.
Well said. That's what sucks, is that there was nothing exciting. And you would think with Tina's vocals, like she's belting it the whole time, pretty much the whole record. And if you don't like her belting, you're gonna hate the entire album. But she kind of her style reminded me of Me and Mortalis, where I was just trying to be like, it sounds like she's just trying to be loud. Like she's mostly loud more than anything else.
Yeah.
And in the few moments where she does allow herself to be quiet or a little more subdued, her voice stands out so much more and sounds a lot better. And I like the description of her voice in a review of this album. They said that her voice is neon edged, and I'm like, that's a really cool description of the way that she sings. But you know, this album's not going to inspire me to grow a mullet anytime soon, and that's what they want me to do.
And that's the goal of any 70s type.
That's clearly what they're trying to get me to do. The guitar riffs like severely lack throughout the whole album, even though they do serve the song. Like saying that you're talking about the drums, right? Like if the drums serve the song well, then, you know, they might not stand out, but at least they're not a detriment. And I think it's the same thing with the guitars. There's never a moment where I was like, holy shit, the guitars suck on this song, because they are good players.
Yeah. Yeah. It might just come back to the songwriting itself, right? It's
very simple.
Unfair of us to expect more stuff from the musicians if the musicians are playing the right part. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a detriment of the songwriting itself that it doesn't allow the songs to be anything more than they are.
Right. Verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. That's the end.
Yeah, and
every single song.
Don't take out any instruments. Don't dynamically change too much.
Never pause to let something stand out.
Yeah, it's just the whole song. It's just the same momentum through the entire album. And there are softer songs, but they aren't really much different.
Well, yeah, I would say like the softest song on here is probably Silver Line.
Yeah,
and I think it sounded like they borrowed a lot from Fleetwood Mac in the instrumentation of that song.
Right.
And that is one of the songs. What sucks is that I think it could have been a standout, really strong, like single off the record, but the guitars, the tone on that song is so, like, I want to say objectively bad. The guitars are so hollow and so weak on Silver Line that it completely takes away from how interesting Tina's vocals are on that track. So it like sucks because you get like one thing gets better and the other things get worse. So then it's just like, well, damn it, this isn't one of the better songs on the record, because it's like something had to suffer to be able to write this type of song. And like, why are the guitars so fucking just empty on that song?
Well, honestly, I kind of love the guitars on this song, and that might just be because it was different from what was happening for the rest of the record.
I just can't stand
but they
it.
are very thin. They're tinny.
Tinny, yes.
They don't have much behind them, which is...
They got no balls.
They got no balls, but honestly, I think that's fine. I kind of enjoyed the guitars on this song.
I don't.
But
I don't like the little bling, 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 and that, you know, almost like, I don't even know, like Toto or something, like one of those types of bands that like bling, bling, like guitars in the background. Just, dude, and I don't blame you for liking it, because that it's at least different from the rest of the album.
Yeah.
And I love the melody of the chorus. And I'm looking for a silver line.
Yeah.
To guide. Like, it's really catchy. Her voice is great on that song. And the bass is at least front and center, right?
Yeah, it's
very
doing
loud.
a little more than usual.
Yeah, a little bit. I think he's doing quarter notes instead of half notes. He's doing do 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 instead of do do do. That's about it.
And like, I don't know.
You know what's crazy though? This got like on average like an 81 in like 12 different magazines that reviewed this album. It's averaged an 81.
I mean, I can imagine the old heads who are listening to this being like, "Oh, finally good music again."
That's true. And they picked up on a lot of the themes that I didn't really pick up on when I was going through the lyrics. Like, all the reviews called out like that the lyrics have stepped up on this record versus their last one, where it's like everything from like breakups to losing your job to like teacher strike, union strikes, to workers' rights, to immigration, to abusive relationships and drug abuse. And outside of the abusive relationship and the breakup, I didn't hear any other really obvious themes or points that they were trying to get across, or stance that they were taking.
I mean, I would say that they did touch on a variety of topics, but none so poignant or unique or interesting that it mattered.
You know what's I agree, and a weird thing that I read about the actual writing of the lyrics of this record, I don't know if you saw this, but from what I understood, the guitarist writes most of the lyrics.
Really?
But tries to write them from Tina Halliday's perspective. So she adds input to the writing and all that stuff, so he tries to write it from her perspective, but he's doing most of the songwriting. So this abusive relationship thing, like Cold Sword, I wonder if that's even a real story.
That I refuse to believe that she didn't write that and the right stuff. I feel like those are too personal for somebody else to write it.
Right.
And I don't know how you would approach your singer being like, "Hey, I want to write about the abuse you went through." You know?
Right. Yeah. Or it's like, "Hey, let's write a song about something that, you know, can be universally understood, and that's something a lot of people will connect to it." You know, that could have been it right there. But yeah, it sucks because there's so really limited information on this album that's out there that I don't know who had writing credits for each song. The only thing I read was that the guitarist wrote most of the lyrics with Tina's input.
It's interesting going to their Wikipedia and seeing how much hype it looks like they had when they were coming out.
Yeah.
And they were like on lists of 10 bands to look out for. They were doing some late shows.
Yeah.
And then you go on Genius and you see that none of these songs have like over 200 views on the lyrics.
Right? Like they were on like Late Night with Seth Meyers
And so I wonder if it was just the hype died down when the second album came out, showing that it's kind of the same stuff, or like I don't know. I just wonder how all that stuff went down.
Yeah, I'm curious too. I think they might have been maybe on the forefront of this, wave of 70s style rock that started coming out again.
This kind of revival.
This revival, because they started in 2014. So in 2015, like a year after they even got together, Rolling Stone featured them as one of the top 10 bands you need to know.
Jeez.
And I'm curious what other bands on that list were falling under this type of genre. Because you think like the Strokes and all them had already kind of come and gone with like bringing back that kind of 60s, late 60s, early 70s sound. And then the more what was considered really cheesy for people who aren't old heads sound of like 70s and 80s metal started coming back. And you think like even joke bands like Steel Panther, like
right,
and then you get more bands like Black Veil Brides that like might not sound like that music, but they look like Motley Crue.
They had the drag
influence.
Yeah.
So
the glam.
Yeah, I'm curious if it was just the timing of when they first came out was just like, holy shit, these guys are, because they would have been a really fresh sound in 2015, and then now maybe 6 years later it just doesn't hit as hard because we've heard a lot.
Kind of doing this 80s thing now.
Right, we're going hard into the 80s now, which we have been for about 10 years. Like thinking about like Twin Shadow and Tori Moi and Chillwave and stuff like that. Like going really hard into the cheesy, what used to be considered cheesy 80s, and now they're making it cool. Yeah. But they're making it fucking cool because they're bringing in new shit. Like they're borrowing that 80s sound, but then they're also incorporating psychedelic or hip hop or all this stuff where like Sheer Mag is just rehashing a bunch of old songs. So I could see old heads loving this shit, and I can see new people being like, yeah, I've already heard this like a million times.
Well,
I mean, I don't know. Like the reviews surprised me that it got so positively reviewed. Just sonically, I'm surprised it got positively reviewed. Like these people must have been listening on like $1,200 fucking studio headphones for this to sound that good. But what's crazy is Bernie Sanders used not a song off of this record, but one of their songs called "Expect the Bayonet" as his walkout song for his comeback presidential campaign rallies in 2019. Oh, he would walk out to a Sheer Mag song. Fucking crazy.
Well, I don't know. I don't know anything in this darn world.
And the Rolling Stone politics podcast, The Useful Idiots, uses that same track as their theme music for their intro of their podcast. So, I mean, how many times have we disagreed with critics and reviewers at this point?
Yeah, I don't know. I wish I was more in step with reviewers and critics and stuff, but it seems like I'm not. It seems like I just don't get what they get. I didn't go to like music school, and I don't appreciate the finer details and sonic sounds of music or whatever.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, what were your we already mentioned like Silver Line and Blood from Stone and Cold Sword and a couple of other songs by name. Like, which ones were your choices, my dude?
I think we share at least one.
Cold Sword?
Cold Sword is my first one.
Absolutely.
It's got it's very odd. I almost kind of wish these lyrics were on Silver Line.
Yeah.
Or just a different song, because the reason I like this song the most is the vocals.
Yes.
The violet sound, it's like a little more catchy than the other songs.
But cold sword. It's a
the music.
Door.
The music is uncharacteristically upbeat.
It's such a happy
what
song.
They're talking about.
Yeah.
They're like, I might be imagining this differently, but it's like a song that you would have a cowbell on. Like
there is a cowbell.
There is
during the pre-chorus, yeah. Or is it just an illusion? And there's like just cowbell going. It sounds like a party song.
It sounds like a party song, and they're doing the and they're doing some offbeat to get down.
Yeah, I love it, and I love the chorus riff that they just let the guitars ring out.
Yeah.
It's a cold, cold sword, just ring in on the ones and fours or whatever. Like, I love that.
Yeah, and this is one of the only songs that I could care about the lyrics. It's definitely the most personal song on the record, and it is actually kind of it just baffles me how personal it gets, and these things that you usually wouldn't talk about on this album of stuff you could step away from, and like not personally dig into,
Yeah, I mean,
and
the
then
song,
suddenly there's this one song that's extremely personal.
Yeah, here's one that it's like it almost like shocks you at how personal and dark the lyrics are.
Yeah, and it's not like Korn or anything when it's not so horribly descriptive or visually disgusting or anything, but it is on the nose. It's kind of a sucker punch, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a sucker punch, and it's very on the nose too. They're not mincing words
not
here.
That subtle.
No, I mean the first four lines is, "When I was a girl, I did my best to hide. We all had to run for cover from my father and his drunken pride."
Yeah,
he'd beat up on my mother and tell us he'd be the only one. And the whole song, the concept is her dealing with the complex emotions of like her abusive father passing away. And she's like, man, I know I'm supposed to be sad, and maybe I am a little sad. But then you think like, but he physically abused and emotionally abused our whole family. Like, so it's almost like good riddance.
It almost makes me wonder if she wanted to put the lyrics on a more happy, upbeat sounding song just so that she would feel less hard emotions performing it.
Maybe so. But she really belts out her voice on this one too, man.
If it was a more solemn song, maybe it would get to her and she wouldn't be able to play the song.
That's a good point.
Or something.
Yeah, maybe it'd be too much. Man, there's a few lines that like really hit me hard on this song, like they're just like very.
If you're not paying attention, you would never know.
Right, for sure. Because it's so catchy. It's a cold, cold sword. It's a closing door. And now I see the sound of that. And the guitar's like really catchy, really fun to listen to. But then it's like, man, the line's like, well, I heard what they say, that family's not for choosing. It's like, ugh, like
family's not for choosing.
Is closure real? Will I find peace, or is it just an illusion? But it's really, really heavy lyrics. Like it just gave me goosebumps, like just singing it. So, dude, Cold Sword, such a strong
Cold Sword for sure.
Such a strong song.
My number one.
Yeah, my number one also.
And let's say our second Nug on 3. I think we might have it. So 1, 2, 3.
The Killer.
The Killer.
Oh!
Yep.
When's the last time that happened, man?
It's like the second catchiest song.
It absolutely is. And it has a really cool guitar riff. Like one that I can actually, like, honestly say is very cool.
It almost seems like it's one of the ones they were proud to actually display up front.
Man, I hate the opener. I hate Steel Sharpens Steel so much.
Right.
The Killer should have been the opening track.
Well, I wonder if it was just because they had the chanting in the beginning where she's like, ah!
Yeah, what a great intro to her voice in general, where like she literally starts out the track like, screeching.
But she could have done that with this song.
Absolutely. I mean,
I don't know.
I love the riff on this song, like when they do, because it almost sounds like it goes from like major to minor, and it's like very AC/DC,
And I think this might be the song with the biggest drought in vocals with that intro. It takes like 40 or 45 seconds to get to the vocals, which is not something that happens a lot on this album. Usually it's just the whole time the vocals are going, and there are like very little short breaks.
Yeah, I love Yeah, for sure. And it's like they knew. It's like you said. It's like they knew they had a killer riff on this one. I love when it goes like like that's where it feels like it switches to minor. It's really cool.
And if I remember correctly, I think they have some of those like super like 70s, 80s like
yes,
where like the guitars harmonize.
Yes, for sure.
And like I am impressed by how little they did that on this record. They only did it 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, and
so,
sometimes
like,
it was my favorite part of the
love it.
song.
Yeah,
Like Hardly to Blame.
right.
They had like a really cool synthy guitar line in Hardly to Blame, and it would last 3 seconds at a time. And I was just like, that's the only thing I like about this track.
Yeah.
But The Killer also, it's like Judas Priest and AC/DC like mixed together.
Yeah, and the best part of the song to me is when the backup vocals that it's the killer, it's the killer,
The
it's
Killer,
the killer again.
Yeah, dude. I thought
Yeah.
for the longest time that they were saying it's the Get Up Kids.
It's the Get Up Kids.
Yeah, I was like, oh, they're saying
That would have been a fine lyric.
I know, right? But yeah, I love that little. Even though the vocals almost sound like a kids album on that part. They're just they're also very weak background vocals. It almost sounds like clearly
But I
these
think
guys
that's to
couldn't
its
hit that
benefit.
note. So they had to do it softly. It's the killer,
Yeah.
it's the killer, it's the killer, yeah. For like a really rockin', fucking badass rock song, like doing those background vocals, like seem like they shouldn't work, but they absolutely do. Like I love them.
It almost seems like they should have like 3 backup singers in the corner.
Yeah.
Who are kind of singing that part.
Glittery
And they're like,
dresses.
"It's the killer." Yeah.
Yeah, and then they're like, well, we have to make this Judas Priest. And then they go, the killer, at one point, and then they
killer.
go back into the song. And it actually,
it's,
like, one of the
few
solos.
guitar solos on this.
Yeah. One of the only solos, and a cool solo. Like a good solo.
Yeah. It's not bad. It's super, like everything else on this album, it should probably go unspoken by now, but like super derivative of the era they're trying to emulate.
Yeah, very, white man bluesy rock solo.
Yeah, real high up on the guitar. Yep, they end it with that harmonic.
And they do that really cool thing where it almost sounds like dueling guitars, so it'll pan from left to right on every other line.
Yep.
Man, this is like, you can definitely tell the guitarist can wail. Like, homeboy can fucking play, and it's like, why did you hold back and write such simple, basic riffs for the whole album, and then you have this really cool major to minor riff that also has an awesome like Thin Lizzy inspired solo in the middle of it. I'm just like,
I wonder if like this obviously isn't real. I don't want to actually throw real shade and like start rumors or whatever, but like I wonder if the singer was like, you can't stand out more than me, and like this was the one song that he was able to like, oh, I can finally be free and do what I want to do.
right?
Because it seems like he's having a lot of fun with this one. He's all over the guitar and he's just kind of...
He was doing those little like during the chorus, like, it doesn't need that, but he's adding a little flourish, and I love it.
And it's an interesting way that they end the song with a very, very reverb delay. And it just goes fluidly into the next one, into the last track.
Yeah, Keep On Running, which is, almost like a Thin Lizzy, I don't want to say ripoff, but it's a...
Well, I mean...
An homage is a really nice way to put it.
An homage.
An homage. I'm over here at the La La Goose, where I'm looking at an homage play. I think it's Beyonce's sister, Homage.
Yeah, I think that's her name.
I think that's her name.
So yeah, I think we have... I was a little worried that I was gonna rag on this album too hard, but it seems like we kind of have the same idea of what we think about this one.
Yeah, it's funny hearing how excited we both got to talk about Cold Sword and The Killer, because it's like...
But it's like the two songs that they had a little variety in, and it was catchy, and it has nice parts in it that you can kind of latch on to.
Yeah, it showed potential for making their own type of music that just has this as an influence rather than just rehashing old music.
Yeah. And so my rating is going to be pretty low, though I do genuinely like those two songs. I genuinely like only those two songs.
Sure.
But I might actually have The Killer on a playlist or something, and Cold Sword.
I like those two a lot.
So I can't. If those two songs weren't on the record, it probably would have been like a 1 or a 2.
Just sonically, or like songwriting, everything combined, like.
Just because, I don't know. There are 70s bands that actually have something to bring and do it better, and actually have that vintage sound of the era.
Yeah, the OGs are the OGs for a reason, man.
Yeah, and I don't want to say that like people can't enjoy a new record that emulates a different era. Like, obviously I'm not saying that, but I personally was not looking for this kind of music, Like, I don't really care to go back to the 70s. And
what was your era? Wasn't the 70s your era of music though, that we talked about, like what decade you would have to choose if you can only listen to music from that decade? Wasn't it the 70s?
Not at all.
Was it the 80s for you?
I think it was like the 2000s.
Oh, fuck.
Honestly.
Okay. Maybe Michael's.
Just because that's what I grew up on,
Yeah. Well, but
I did listen to.
It's not the 90s.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did listen to a lot of 70s and 80s growing up when I was first getting into music.
Your dad's a big rock metal guy, right?
Yeah, and also when I went to the School of Rock, those were the main eras that they kind of like to harp on. And those were all the posters. We all Led Zeppelin and Def Leppard.
I've seen the movie.
Thin Lizzy.
The Ramones.
But I'm probably just going to give this one... I hate being so harsh and critical, because I know they went through a lot of work to do this record, but the vocals got old after a while, even irritating at times.
Yeah.
There was nothing there musically. Most of the record, all the songs sounded the same all throughout the record. So I'm probably going to give this one a 2.6 is what I'm thinking. And it's just for me.
Yeah,
I'm sure
it is. How much did you enjoy this on a
this.
scale of 0 to 10? What was your enjoyment level? And a 2.6. and I'm guessing it would have been a 0.6 had there not been two songs on there that you actually liked.
It probably would have been like a 1.
Because we can think of this in terms of like, out of the 10 songs that are on this record, how many did you actually enjoy? And 2.6 sounds about right for you.
About 2.6.
Yeah, damn, dude. It's so crazy. Go ahead.
To compliment it real quick, it does emulate the era very well. People who like that era will love this album, and I'm sure the previous one. The singer is very talented. I'm excited to see where she goes from here. And it definitely keeps a consistent vibe throughout the record.
Absolutely.
And I'll say that to its benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. For all of the bands that are trying to bring back this era of music, I feel like Sheer Mag is probably one of the best at doing that.
For sure.
Yeah, the Tina Halliday, she has an awesome voice, incredible vocals. She clearly has a dynamic range that she's just not showing a lot on this record. And she reminds me, in terms of like really strong, powerful rock female vocalists, she reminds me a lot of Brittany Howard. Oh my god, I can't believe I'm forgetting their name because I love this fucking band.
Is it? I don't know what Brittany Howard's from.
I got it. One second. Brittany Howard. She is such a badass. I can't believe I can't remember the Alabama Shakes.
Alabama Shakes.
Yeah, when was the last time you heard that fucking name, right?
It's been a second.
She reminds me of Brittany Howard in the sense of just a strong, soulful, really strong female vocalist that clearly can do more than what she's doing right now. Like Brittany Howard came out with a solo record that is almost better than Alabama Shakes' stuff.
Really?
Yes.
Oh wow.
And she showed her range on all of the band's stuff. Like it's not like she held back, but you can just tell like she's a huge driving force of their sound, and getting to do her own thing was like really made her shine. So I would love to see Tina Halliday like do her own stuff and see what she can bring to the table and how she can make it a little bit different. Because I feel like clearly the guitarist is a huge writing force in this band. So yeah, but I'll give you all the things that you gave them as positives. Like absolutely, really good at recreating that sound, even if it comes off as a rehash most of the time. Very consistent throughout the whole record, even though that for us was a bad thing.
all these things could be negative.
Absolutely. But I will say it's just like they know what they're doing, you know? So like I give them all that. But the negatives, it's like, yeah, it's like kind of weaker songwriting. The way that they produced her vocals didn't do her any favors in terms of trying to listen to this in a lot of different outputs. And
I mean, God, if they could just change the effects around a little bit.
Yeah.
If we could just have one or two songs, it almost made me feel like they were disguising something, like they were hiding something about.
They could have been
like they're hiding her behind these effects.
Yeah, they very well could be doing something like that, like a little trickery to try and make them sound better. When in turn, I think they made them sound worse. And I mean, even in high school when I was recording my first records in my ska band, like we knew to take the latest masters and listen to it in the car, on headphones, on your home stereo, in your outside stereo. Like listen to them, you know, in the worst possible speakers, computer, and just to make sure that this sounds decent and everything. And it doesn't sound like they did that with this. It's like they heard it on their fucking badass studio amp, speakers, and then they were just like, oh, the album sounds great, beautiful. So to say that this is well produced, I think would not be correct.
Well, it's rough because it's a good sounding album when you listen to it on, just regular speakers or earbuds or something. I don't think I would count it as a negative that the car speakers didn't sound good, because it's just so much to think about. And if they did adjust for car speakers, it would sound different. It might not sound good on headphones. And especially with this like feel that they're trying to get with the mix throughout the music.
Right. And I could have taken the extra step to changing the EQ in my car to match this record, to make it sound good in the car.
Right.
But, an album shouldn't make me fucking work for it to sound good. And I'm kind of the same. I think I gave this like an 8 point something last year.
Did you really?
Yeah. The first time I heard it was on headphones. It sounded awesome. And I loved how fresh it sounded to me, and I love her voice, and the music, while it wasn't outstanding, was definitely not offensive. So there was a lot that I liked about it the first time I heard it, and I was going into this idea of covering it on the podcast with the idea that I was gonna fucking love it again, and I didn't, and it was a bummer to realize like that how little I liked it this time around.
I really do hope us texting about it didn't affect how you listen to the album.
Dude, I mean, when I texted you, I had just listened to the whole thing in my car, and I was like, oh no. I had a gut sinking feeling that I was like, oh no, I don't like this even a fraction as much as I did the first time I heard it. And yeah, who knows, man? Who knows if it was time and place, if it was, it was just what I wanted to hear that day or something. But listening to it again, I definitely didn't enjoy it as much, and I think I'm giving it a 2.6, man.
Oh, wow.
I'm matching it. I was gonna give it a 3 point something, and then I'm just like, nah, fuck it. Like, if I'm looking at this as these are 10 songs, I enjoyed 2 of them a lot, and I liked a little bit here and there. 2.6.
Wow, man. Yeah. I did not expect that from you.
I didn't expect it either until I started listening to it. And then I was...
that just goes to show you what a second listen will do. Because you listened to the album once, right?
Yeah.
You listened to it once, you gave it an 8, which for you is a very high score.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, it really is, and for most people an 8 is like average or whatever, but I know you, and I know how you think about the ratings and stuff. Mm-hmm. And for that to go to a 2.6 that's crazy to me.
Yeah. It surprised me too, man.
That's what a couple listens does, man.
Yeah.
That's why we take a week to listen to these albums.
Exactly. If
At least.
Yeah.
And we had 2 weeks for this one, and I mean, I'll tell you, I did not utilize the 2 weeks.
No, man, I listened to this
as much as I usually do.
I usually listen to an album like a handful of times, like you said, to get over that honeymoon phase, or to get over that the opposite of a honeymoon phase where I fucking hate it the first time I listen to it, like
a chilly sun phase.
A chilly sun phase, like I did with Morphine, where the first time I heard it, I fucking hated it. And then, listening to it a handful of times more, I really started to understand it and dig it a lot more. The honeymoon phase
I was
wore off
scared
with this one.
when we were, because we kind of messaged each other a couple hints on that, and I was scared about what was going to happen. I was like, oh crap, Jay's going to hate us.
I was so nervous too, man, because I love Jay so much and respect his opinion on music a lot. So
he's just like the coolest dude. You just like,
so nice.
You just want him to coddle you.
Yeah.
And feed you your baba.
I just want his acceptance.
I just want him to be proud of
me.
me.
Yeah, it's him and Michael I hold to this like standard of understanding and having this like so much knowledge of music that it's like, man, if they respect my opinion, then that like means a lot to me. And I was nervous about Jay. I was nervous about Sun City Girls too,
Oh God. Right.
But yeah, man,
they don't make it easy for us sometimes,
which I appreciate. And Jay and Mike, if you're listening, man, like let's have you on again and let's talk about another record, dude. I've both times. I think we've had Michael on twice now.
Yeah, we've had him on twice. The first time was with Sun City Girls, and the second was
the Thermals,
the Body, the Blood, and the Machine.
Yeah, the Thermals. Yeah, both times surprised me, and both times were probably something I wouldn't have listened to had they not brought it up. So I love that. Well, damn, dude, 2.6s across the fucking board.
This might be our lowest rated album.
It might be. I think we might have rated Pet Sounds a little lower.
I don't know, man, because we respect the hell out of that album.
Well, I should have rated it a 2.6 or lower.
But yeah, tell us what y'all think.
Please.
Take a couple listens to the album. Tell us we're dead wrong. Tell us we're dead to rights.
Mm-hmm.
We're on Instagram at EBPcast. Jean-Luc Guitard with like I think a couple SHs in there.
Silent.
Brett Hanrahan with 3 T's, a normal amount of a slightly above average amount of letters.
I always spell it wrong.
We are anywhere podcasts are found. That means you can go to iTunes. You could tell us what you think. You could rate us. You could go to our website, which I don't think people know about, but we do have a Podbean website.
Podbean.com/earbuds podcast, right?
I believe so. It might be EVPcast. I don't go on it.
Let me see. Earbuds. I only go to it to see how many listens we're getting. No.
That all Lucas cares about is the fucking numbers, man. The numbers going up.
You gotta bump up those numbers. Those are rookie numbers that we're getting right now on our listens, man. That's not true. We're so thankful for everyone listening to this. Please tell your friends about it. Follow us on Instagram, like Brett said. Leave us a comment. If you want to be a guest, even if we don't fucking know you, send us a DM, man. We'll have you on. Me and Brett love talking about music, even if we don't like the music that we're talking about.
We still love talking about it, and maybe even shamefully more so when we diss it.
Yeah, unfortunately, I do get a little excited when...
we did reach a little milestone. We are currently at 531 downloads.
Super excited.
Over the course of 28 episodes. Yes. That is crazy to me, actually.
Super exciting. I mean, we've been doing this for about 8 months, and we're at 500 listens. To some people, that sounds like nothing. To 2 guys who thought no one was going to be listening to this shit, 500, it's incredible.
It's great, man. Thank you all for... just thank you again for listening. If it's your first time, if it's your 28th time.
And tell your friends.
Tell your friends, tell your enemies.
Yeah, if you hate someone and you hate this podcast, make them listen to an episode.
That's a great, just lock them in a room, tie them to a chair, make them listen to the Pet Shop sound, the Beach Boys.
One of our first 5 or 6 where we went on for 2.5 hours because we talked about every single song.
Yeah, the first episode where Lucas goes in depth on each song on the Resignation.
Dissecting the lyrics.
That could be a good one.
It's interesting that
where you could
that episode still get
you
plays.
can hear me nervously trying to speed up the conversations.
Trying to keep me on track. Yeah, man. So what do you want to talk about next?
Man, I think the next album I want to talk about is, I can't believe I didn't put it on the suggestions on our sheets. But I kind of want to go back to the Bright Light Social Hour on their second album. Space is the Place.
All right then. Is this the first band that we've done multiple albums by them now?
Maybe.
I'm surprised it wasn't King Gizzard first.
Space is Still the Place is the name of the album. The artist is the Bright Light Social Hour, Austin locals. Their sound completely changes on this album, I'd say. And
you love this one more, right?
I think I still like the first one more, but I think you'll love this one. I think I should have introduced this one to you first, honestly.
I don't know, man.
It'll be a nice change of pace. The production, I think, is fantastic on this album. But I guess we'll see.
It'll be tough to beat Bare Hands, Bare Feet.
Bare hands, bare feet.
We built a city. I'm excited, man. Yeah, I haven't even. I remember you told me way back then to check out this record, and I haven't because I'm a good friend. So I knew that we were going to save it for the podcast.
You wanted to save your first reaction for
exactly.
Yeah, for when it was recorded.
Exactly, and I like your leopard print or whatever print cell phone case you got going there. It matches.
Oh, thank you.
It matches
It reminds me of
your cat headphones.
It kind of looks like the Rugrats.
Yeah,
background.
for sure.
I got it at a Dollar Tree for $1.
Oh, that's a good deal.
Yep, it doesn't protect against anything, but it sure looks neat.
Well, all right. So next episode, buddies, we're going to be listening to Space is Still the Place by the Bright Light Social Hour.
Yes, sir.
Listen to that record before you listen to our episode and see if you agree with our opinions, man. Thanks again for listening, buddies. Brett, what would you rate this episode?
You know what? I would rate this episode an 8.6.
I'm right there with you. I was thinking 8.6 even before you said it.
We're just on the same page today, man.
We thank God. It would have sucked if one of us loved it and the other one hated this.
Oh man, I was worried because you're the one that brought this, and I'm like, well, he must like it,
right? And I did, a year and a half ago. Brett,
Lucas,
this was good.
This was good.
Okay, well, thanks, buddies.
Bye.